love it. I love it.
I've spent many a cold and stormy night in tents. But thankfully, I've never had to fight winter. Survivor's guilt really is a strange thing. You should be happy. You made it out. Yet I find myself wondering, why me? Why did I get so lucky? How come I'm in a nice warm bed now, while others are still sleeping like this?
You know, the encampment that we drove through on Barrington. You know, the 8 or 9 structures that are there. Who knows how many people are actually there. I left work last night. Lights were on in one of the tents, so I know there are people there. Yeah. But every occupant of those tents has a different reason why they're there.
Yeah.
I think you would be hard pressed to find, you know, a group of people who are all out for the same exact reason. I've met people that have experienced homelessness here in Halifax, like back in the day when they were sleeping in abandoned buildings.
Yeah.
We may have only had visible encampments here in the HRM since like 2022. Well, the first conversation I had with an individual was up on Barrington. Like it was just before they started all this new construction here. They actually took quite a bit of green space away from where the circle is now. First conversation I had was in August of 2022. I was walking home from work. There were a couple people down there. I'd seen them there for a few days, and I'm like, today's the day I'm going to get out. And it's in here. Had a 45-minute conversation with them. And that encampment there I spent a lot of time down there. Well, I've told a lot of the unhoused here, like, they are survivalists. They're in survival mode. The strongest people that I've ever met, because I don't know anyone personally who's ever served in like the armed forces. Some of the strongest people I know are people that are outside. You have no choice.
Yeah.
You have zero choice but to be strong. And I know people who didn't survive, that have overdosed, been beaten to death.
Sad story from the homeless file to share with you tonight. Friends say a man has died from an alleged overdose outside a tent just steps from City Hall in Halifax. This is the second death in an encampment in the city in recent weeks. CTV's Hoff Sauer.
Like this beating death of, I know her street name was Phoenix. Like, I know that she died as the result of being beaten at the Green Road encampment. Do you think any justice will ever be served? Do you think that individual will ever face time? I don't think so. Stories like that fly under the radar. I would, the mental state that folks are in when they're outside, I wouldn't wish that on anybody. I just would not.
Matthew and I decided to then go for a walk through the Barrington Street encampment to see if we could find anybody to give some supplies to. It was minus 18 that day, before wind chill.
Anybody here?
We did come across one man in a summer tent, tarped down against a wall, trying to get some semblance of wind protection from the harbor. Behind him, a busy road and condos overlook. He had been there for 3 months and declined to speak on film. Not finding anyone to talk to, Matthew and I decided to head over the bridge to the Green Road encampment, where he had a feeling a friend of his might be home.
Hi, I'm PJ. This is my third winter out in the field. Behind us is my camper that I've lived in since I come here. Basically, the camper's the reason I'm still out here, because there's no place where I can take it, and I hate to leave my camper behind because I've dreamt of having one all my life.
Yeah, and I just want to say, because I've talked with PJ before, and you want this camper to go with you.
Yes.
Because you know that even if you do get into four walls, what happens if you are now back out in the street, you've lost your camper.
Yeah.
So I understand why you want that to go with you. And yeah, that's the reason you're still here.
Yeah. So this is my third winter. It's been rough. I've watched people come and go, some sketchy people and some good people. I know a lot of people look at unhoused people as all drug users, but we're not all drug users. There is some in among the users that just tolerates it because we have no other choice.
You have electricity here now.
Yes, we did get electricity about 2 to 3 months ago, maybe a little longer. I'm not really sure. It has made some difference. There has been a little bit of issue of trying to get used to the idea that it's not like a house. Some people wanted it like, oh, I can run my microwave and that. There's only 10 watts. You can't run your microwave. It's only, the purpose for the electricity is for heaters and lights. If you want to run anything else, you got to shut everything else down to run it. Right now, where there's not many people, we can run 2 cords, so we get 20 watts. That makes it better.
Can I ask you where you are in talks with any organization trying to get you out of here? Because the city has made an announcement that within the next 18 to 24 months, all the designated encampments will be closed. Where are you in conversation with trying to get you out of here?
I have looked at a couple places. There was one place that there was a 1-bedroom and bachelors available, and when I applied, they didn't tell me which one they were going to give me, and then they decide, oh, well, we're going to give you a bachelor. That don't work. And there's no parking.
Can you remind me the circumstances that put you out here in the first place?
I had what you call the multiple tank syndrome. And what that is I'm a fish lover. I'm not a altogether bad fisherman. I fish a keeper as well. I had, at the last of it, 10 fish tanks, which, looking back on it, I do understand why the landlord said, hey, you can't have that. But also, I did try to work something out in the end, and he would not respond back to me of, okay, I cut back to 5 tanks. I will not go any higher anymore. And he didn't get back to me, and I ended up still coming out, even though. And all my fish died, what I was able to take with me.
What year was this?
That was 3 years this fall. Like 3 years in December.
3 years in December.
Yeah.
And then you showed up here. Like, how did you end up at this particular location?
Oddly enough,
in your camper.
Before I ended up unhoused, the crazy thing is there was this gentleman. He would sit outside of the drugstore panhandling. And every once in a while, I would go, I'm going to McDonald's to get a sandwich, a burger and fries or whatever. I'd always pick him up a burger. And he lived up here. And then when it come time that I needed a place, he told me about the field here. And my camper, well, you gotta know how to play your cards to be able to get a camper quick as I did.
So you showed up here and then acquired the camper?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I wasn't fully up here. I knew I was coming up here. I had 2 months to prep.
How do you mentally prepare for being unhoused?
Well, first it's the denial. You can't believe that it's happening to you. And then when reality sets in, it's like, what happened here? Where do I go from here? How am I going to get help? Where am I going to eat? Where am I going to sleep? That's the second stage. You're thinking that. The third stage is when you're scrambling, trying to find something. And that's when it actually does get more emotional because you're realizing there's nothing out there. You're going to be in a tent. Like I say, I was just lucky that I was able to play the cards right and be able to get this camper, which it's not really 100% neither. Like the whole inside should be ripped out. It needs a lot of work, but it's solid walls.
But better than being in a flappy tent.
Yeah. Still gets just as cold though.
What message are you trying to convey to the public?
The message I'm trying to say is basically, number one, we're always going to be here. There's always going to be unhoused. Don't matter where we're pushed or how hard they push us. Like I say, I've been here for 3 winters now. I see that as they go in, more comes out. It's not going to stop unless we have these higher end buildings actually having low income in their lower levels. We need the higher up people to actually see us as humans as well. We are not a pest. We are humans that's trying to survive, and we need help. In order to survive, we need housing. We need, we don't have anywhere to shower. We don't have, well, we just got our power recently. Our outhouses, they're pretty disgusting even the day after the day of cleaning. They're disgusting.
Who wants to use a washroom right now in a porta potty at minus 18?
Not me.
There you go, right?
That's why I have a pail in my camper.
Well, that's why it's just so inhumane. Here we are, the beginning of January 2026. You said that there's roughly 10, 15 people here.
Yeah.
What's the max number of people that you've seen here in the time you've been here?
I have seen, not this summer it just went, but last summer there was 50.
50 people?
Yeah. I am glad to see a lower number this year. That says there is something happening.
How often do you feel threatened here?
I can't really say how often. I know there has been quite a few times I have been threatened.
Well, one's too many.
Yes. Like I say, there is multiple users up here depending on their substance and if it agrees with them and if I happen to be in the crossfire.
A man has life-threatening injuries following reports of shots fired in Dartmouth over the weekend. Halifax police say just before 6:30 Sunday night, they responded to reports of possible gunshots in the area of Green Road.
Like I've seen there's a lot of people fighting, arguing over things. This summer did get pretty violent at times. Thank goodness I wasn't home. I just heard about it. And if I am home, I have a curtain up so I can't see it. I try to keep myself sheltered from it.
Talking with PJ reminded me of my time living in an encampment, one that was also frequently featured in the news. Though, last going off, it was often featured not for what was happening in it, but for what was becoming of it.
To turn this muddy field into a first for Nova Scotia, a pilot project called a tiny home community for homeless people.
My name's Angela Lombard. I am 52 from Digby County. I've been homeless for, it was 3 years. I've been living here since February of last year in the tiny homes in Lower Sackville. I went through living in tents in the winter time, couch surfing. I've dealt with trying to find a place to live. The apartments are so expensive you can't afford it on the budget we get. I lived in a tent. It was in April 3 years ago. I was in Bridgewater. We lived, my ex-boyfriend and I lived in, it was a Woods Road, railroad, like, and we struggled. We made little fires in a little barbecue pit to keep warm. We found a little river to even wash our clothes and our, it was a big challenge to stay warm, but also the people were very kind and did help us. There was a lot of people that brought us blankets, sweaters. One gentleman was there for us the whole time, was bringing us whatever we needed, camping stoves, everything you could possibly think of. This man brought us food to help, and I appreciated everything he's done for us. Between Halifax and Bridgewater, a big difference. There wasn't as many people that wanted to help. We had a few people that come and would give us food, or like some churches would get people to deliver like burgers or things like that. But we also at nighttime would have, sad to say, drug addicts that would come to our tent and ask for drugs, alcohol, which was kind of frightening. I seen one gentleman come, and the next day a lady died in his tent because of the drugs, and he went to hide. It wasn't fun. Sad. You don't feel safe sleeping in a tent in Halifax. I didn't. But at the same time, what do? You have nowhere else to go.
You basically do what you gotta do to survive.
I did what I had to do to survive. I struggled with surgery a year ago in August. I had a knee surgery, a knee replacement, and I struggled walking to the Salvation Armies or wherever to get food, to go to the washroom. I would struggle with a cane. It's just not fun. Hang in there. Because you think, I struggled very hard, and 3 years is a long time to be homeless. I struggled every day, but you will overcome it. There are people out there to help you, and you just got to find the right people to help you.
So would you say you found some help here?
I have tremendously. I was in the shelters in Dartmouth at the Woodside shelter. There's the pallets. I lived there quite a while. They got me here, and I'm very thankful for their help. They were so wonderful to me. I cannot say one bad thing about staying there, because if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be here in my tiny home. And I'm grateful. And I thank God every day for them. And the people here are lovely, that work here. I don't have a bad word to say about the people here. I keep to myself, and I'm thankful. I do feel safer. I do feel safer. I live alone with my dog, and I feel safe. A lot better than a few years ago.
So, did you have your dog the whole time?
I did. Well, she's so tiny. A lot of people would give me like little blankets for her, sweaters. I had one place that donated dog food for her. It was rough. It was rough, and there's places that I could have got, but they wouldn't take the dog. So she's my baby, and I would never give her up. They're your family. Like, I could not give no. That's my baby. I couldn't do it.
How would you describe the emotion of finally getting out of the tent and into a place like this?
The emotion? Well, I suffer depression. I suffer a lot of illnesses, but I was very overwhelmed with getting my own place and doing, being able. I had stuff in storage for 3 years. I missed my belongings. My check would go to my U-Haul payment because of my, and I barely had food to eat.
That's something that some people don't realize. It's expensive to be homeless, isn't it?
It is very expensive, because I paid, and there was the times I had to choose whether to pay my bill for my U-Haul, for my storage stuff, or eat. And I didn't want to lose my belongings, because I had stuff in there that, I cherished from my grandmother, and that was a struggle. I struggled hard. So, yeah, it was not fun. There was days I'm diabetic. I'm supposed to eat certain things. What do you do when you only have a certain thing to eat, and, your diet is screwed up? I was sick all the time. And I'm doing better now. Like, such a big improvement. My mental health was bad. I won't lie. I have nothing to be ashamed of. It's a part of life we've got to face. But I got there. I'm very thankful for these people. I really am. On $390 a month, where do you find a place to live?
Not all forms of homelessness look like campers or tents pitched up in the middle of a field. Some people have struggled for the majority of their lives to have a stable roof over their heads. And despite great achievements, they still struggle to achieve that sense of stability that so many people take for granted. Silent discrimination is a real thing.
Yeah, I'm Mila. I'm a trans woman. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm comfortable with they, thems as well. I'm someone who's been on and off unhoused throughout my life, and also somehow managed to graduate university in 2024. So I have a BA in sociology, which I feel very proud of, and just a lot. Yeah.
On a scale of 1 to 10, your mental wellness.
I recently had my antidepressant up, so I'm actually doing pretty well. But I am diagnosed with a number of mental health, mental health conditions like depression, anxiety. I am diagnosed with PTSD as well, and ADHD. Yeah.
Can you take us back to your first time experiencing being unhoused?
Yeah, my parents got divorced, and my mother needed to rent out the whole house to sell it, to there was renovations that were incomplete. So the whole house had to be rented out. So we couldn't live there because like my father was messing around with finances and stuff. He wasn't making it easy, and they had to sell the house. I have 4 siblings.
4 siblings, okay.
Yeah. So me and 2 of my siblings. I have 2 half siblings and 2 full siblings. My 2 full siblings, me and my mom, ended up having to live in a van for almost a full year. And my mom.
What time of year is this? I guess a full year. You're going through spring. Winter,
yeah, it was mostly like spring, summer, fall, and then by the winter it's hard to remember everything perfectly because it was like I was like 10 at the time, and then like when I turned 11, we moved to Nova Scotia.
Where are you moving from?
Saskatchewan.
Saskatchewan, okay.
Yeah, which was interesting. Very big change. I prefer the winters here.
yeah, for sure.
They're not as cold. So we were in a van for like a year, and my mom made it into, because we were homeschooled, which is a whole thing. My mom made it into sort of an educational thing. She like took us around the East Coast. So like that was when I was like 10-ish. We were homeless for about a year in a van. I didn't really deal. We lived in a trailer park for a bit, then we had to move, and then we went down to the South Shore in Port Latour for a bit. Had a really bad experience with a landlord there, some guy who owned a schoolhouse. Absolute shit situation, so we had to move again. And then we lived with my mom got a boyfriend. We lived with him for a bit. He was a bad experience. Ended up in Sackville for a bit, and then a lot of like complicated things with like family and like a lot of trauma in the family and things like that. And eventually I was able to move to Halifax on my own, and it was probably not until I ended up starting school, and it was actually in school that I ended up being homeless over the Christmases because they wouldn't allow you to stay. So I had to couch surf with that. And then a couple summers where, because I couldn't get student loans during the summer, so I would have to find somewhere to stay. And it was really hard to find work because I came out in 2017 after I had left home and moved to the city. And it became starkly impossible to find work. Like before I came out as trans, it was super easy. Afterwards, it was like so difficult to find work, which is why I went to school actually. And so I ended up being like summers and Christmases, I was like dealing with housing insecurity. Some summers I was able to get like work at a few different kitchens around the city, mostly like confectionery, just like donuts for the most part. And then like some summers it was just like really difficult. And then in 2024, I was like my last year of school, and I ended up homeless because I had some stability for a little bit with one apartment, but the property manager who lived on site, he threatened me, right? So I had to run away from that place because he's a bit of like old stock Nova Scotian, kind of like maritime justice kind of person. Luckily, I've never had to deal with anything like that, but like, it makes me a bit nervous, right? So I ran away from that place, and it was impossible. It was like really good rent. It was just a lovely, lovely landlord. It was just an older lady who was renting out the upper portion of her house. She was fantastic, but like, it was her son who was the one who threatened me, and I just so I ran away from that and ended up in a shelter for the rest of the year, and eventually got into the boarding house that I'm in now. So yeah, I was basically ready to go and try to get a tent and camp, and a couple of my friends, and my ex at the time, who I'm still friends with, were like, no, go to a shelter. Because there are threats when you're like on the street, like in a tent, right? There are issues.
There's threats everywhere.
There are, right? So I reached out, and I ended up in Berry House, is what it's called. And I was like, like, can you take me? Like, is this like okay? And like, yeah, like in Nova Scotia, it's pretty like across the board, like the standard is like trans women can go into women's shelters.
So a good, easy process for you so far dealing with that?
Yeah, like getting in there was fine. It was like a lot emotionally, but like it was like okay. And at the time, I actually did have like a full-time job in a kitchen. Later that year, the hours got cut down just because like the industry is like kitchens are struggling right now, and this is just a mom and pop shop.
Did you feel safe in there?
No. Definitely like anxious and like because like you don't know the people around you. Most of the women there were fantastic. I have a very I don't know how to word it, just like maybe compassionate approach to cisgender people's ignorance, because I think we're all born ignorant. I don't think it's like a failing unless someone chooses to stay ignorant, and most people don't have access to information, so it's like how can you like expect them to like understand you if they like the whole world is telling them something else, right? So I was like a lot of educating just to keep myself safe, but like most of the women there were like chill. Like I think most people generally like if they meet you, they're not like, they might be uncomfortable, but they're not gonna like, most people don't like hate people, I think. But there was a couple problem connections, and one of them was like about 4 months straight of harassment, and I ended up having to get a peace bond against the person.
This is happening while you're there.
Yeah. And so, I wasn't able to get the peace bond until I was basically leaving.
Are you always, in a sense, looking over your shoulder?
Oh yeah.
Okay. See, that's what I tell everyone, that it's just not safe out there. Whether you're in a tent, I know there's safety in numbers, but I just don't believe that. Well, you'll never convince me that a shelter environment is a good environment or it's a safe environment. I'm sorry, you're just not going to convince me.
There was a couple nights where I did take, because you're allowed to take a couple nights out of the shelter without losing your bed. So there were a couple nights where it was just like the harassment was bad enough that I went and like I just, it was in the fall too, so it was getting kind of cold, but I went and slept out in front of the library. So I've had a little bit of street sleeping experience, but like I wouldn't say
that must be terrifying.
I picked the library because I was like, there's cameras.
Yeah, so you had mentioned finishing school.
Yeah.
Can you briefly explain some of the challenges you faced while finishing that accomplishment?
Yeah, like I definitely undervalued the fact that I finished that in a shelter. I have one person I am still like in close contact with from the shelter. Surprisingly, I made a friend. I made a couple friends, but like this was like a really good friend, and recently she was like, I can't believe you did that. And I'm like, yeah, I guess that's pretty impressive. There was like, I was mostly like online courses, and I had a laptop, a very old laptop, fortunately, and there was a little room for like private, in the living room, there was a little room for like private like calls and stuff, and I would use that for my classes. And like, sometimes it's like when you're living, like when I've had so much stress throughout my life, like my ex who I'm still friends with was very like kind of like helped me reflect on that too, like just the amount of stress I've been through, and I'm like kind of used to it. So it's hard to like recognize that that's like something that most people aren't dealing with. But yeah, so there was like a lot of stress with the harassment too, and I still finished school.
Struggles you've faced trying to look for housing, struggles you face still now.
Yeah, what are some hurdles?
So when you're in a shelter, one of the things you have to be doing is looking for housing, and I'm like, yes, I am gonna look for housing, and especially when I was first in there, because I had like a full-time job, like I was like, okay, I should be able to at least find a roommate. The amount of people who straight up, like I had to show the staff these messages, straight up like on Facebook looking for roommates. I'm like, would you be cool with a trans woman? Because I'm not gonna hide that, because I've had running away from that one place to go into the shelter wasn't the first time I've run away from an apartment. It was the second time I've run away from an apartment, because when I first came out, my roommate at the time who I was subletting from got really violent, because I had moved in as a man to them, right? And suddenly I was not. And they got super uncomfortable with it. But I'm like messaging these people being like, hey, like, I'm looking for an apartment. I have the funds, like this and that. And they're like, no trans person. I'm not. Like, just straight up on record in text saying they're not comfortable with a trans person living with them. And I had to show the staff this. I'm like, I am looking. Like, the places I could afford were like just straight up discriminating against me.
How does that make you feel when you have to
exhausted?
Sorry?
Exhausted.
But reading a text, I'm just reading a text from a complete stranger that says, sorry, I can't share space with you because you're trans. That is just disgusting.
I would rather know that that they're uncomfortable and not have to deal with that later. I would rather someone be honest. Like, I'd rather know that someone is prejudiced against me, because I've had to run away from places because of that, right? Yeah, it's like trying to find work where, like, corporate and business, like, tends to know not to openly be that way, right? Like, your average person who's just looking for someone to sublet with them isn't trained in HR, right? But, like, I know that as soon as I came out as trans, finding a job was almost impossible, right? So the stark difference there, like, I know that there's discrimination, but, like, you can't see it, right? And in the off chance, sometimes I've gotten into jobs, I had to leave one job because one of my coworkers told me I was an AIDS risk, and my bosses were like, I don't know what to do about that, right? Like, you can get into these situations and, like, you're like, I would rather know you don't feel comfortable with me beforehand, so I don't have to run away.
Yeah, so, I've been in this province for like 4 years, and just last year numbers were out where the number of unhoused has doubled.
Yeah.
So I worry about people. I see people at encampments who are in tents right now in February, snow on the ground, first timers. But I also know people who are in their third winter. So what advice, and not necessarily people that are in tents, but what advice do you have for people who find themselves unhoused or are on the brink of it?
I feel like one of the most important things for me, because I used to try to help a lot of people, and that's, like, nice and it's good, but, like, when you're, like, at the bottom, focus on yourself. Don't like throw other people under the bus, but, like, prioritize yourself, because once you're on your feet, you can do things for other people, but, like, when you're not, like, you gotta get back on your feet and just focus on that. Avoid conflicts, avoid the disruptive situations, and just focus on getting things back together, because, like, and always accept what's available for help. Like, don't ever feel embarrassed about food banks. Don't ever feel embarrassed about, like, going to the mosh van. People get embarrassed about that stuff. No, like, they give out, like, some of the street navigators will give out the little cards. Take it. Don't be like, oh, someone else might need it more than me. You're homeless. Take the help and get on your feet, and, like, don't let people drag you down, and don't drag other people down. Yeah.
Let's go back to the ball field for a moment. I spent about 4 months there myself before I ended up at the Beacon House. But what became of everybody else?
I'm Amanda, and I'm from here. I'm from Nova Scotia. And I don't know what else to say to that, except for I have lived an experience of being outside, and I've been struggling with trying to find housing, even though I am in a shelter diversion program now, but I'm thriving.
You are.
I'm doing better.
You are.
I'm getting back on my feet, slowly, surely. This is Like, so me and somebody else from the ball field have a matching bracelet. This is from somebody from the ball field. It's made out of a pallet. And I think so highly of it because we lived on pallets, right? It's such an amazing part of the story. And then I can say, like, you know, this one was from somebody else from the ball field, you know, and same with the ring. You know, I'm always having something on from people who mean something so much to me. I have other jewelry too. It just...
Well, you shared such a tragic time, and it was such in the spotlight. Like the ball field that you were in seemed like it was in the news all the time.
All the time. It was so frustrating.
How long were you there?
I was there for 9 months.
Wow.
Yeah. I was there for 9 months. I left in January, so like before they shut it down, I disappeared in January. They just poofed up and fucking left in the nighttime. Nobody knew I was leaving, except for 2 people. Pretty much everybody was upset with me for not saying goodbye, or they were worried, thinking I went back to the woods. But I went into the hotel program. It was pretty done. Then that was the ending of my outside journey. If I had to do it again, I would.
Yeah, you were talking about that before we started recording, and I've talked to many unhoused, and I've never, like, what did you learn in that experience where you're just like, you know what, if I had to do that again, I'd be okay with that.
I would. So before I became unhoused, I was already going in the middle of the woods by myself, and I was like camping for a couple of weeks at a time. I think 3 weeks at the most before I took like a week or two. I left the woods, so like I started off in the woods, and I left because of the fires. I had no choice. I had to vacate, which is where I ended up at the ball field. And I met some of the most incredible people that you could ever ask to meet ever. Of course there was addictions. Of course there was, like you said, hoarding and everything. Of course there was ignorant people. But for the most part, like walking in there, it was like a family. The feeling was like family orientated. And it's like we kind of work together to get what our needs. Like we just work together to get them. And I know with some of the housing support workers that went in there, well, at the beginning they weren't really walking in there, and they were kind of like picking and choosing, I guess, and not really giving as much support as what some people needed. Like, I did speak up to a housing support worker on that, and eventually, like, the person was like, well, does anybody need anything? And then I was talking between me and the other people to the housing support worker, so they had more of a valid kind of like conversation with somebody that wasn't going to be, you know, somebody saying they just needed something and then going and getting a fix or whatever. They were actually needing something and willing to use it. I can think of many things we struggled with.
It's a chaotic scene there, is it not?
Yeah, it was chaotic.
There's no, when you were there, any security?
Well, I'd like to say, like, well, no, but yes at the same time. Like, if something happened to one of us, you've seen the rest of us go crazy. Mm-hmm. Not saying that we should, but we gotta protect each other. So, like, part of security, mm-hmm. right? Like, you kind of have a little bit. Like, that's where it felt like family orientated. You don't have that in every encampment. Yeah, you don't. Mm-hmm. Like, I can think of a couple of places I've walked into, and it's just more chaotic and, like, unsafe rather than what we went through.
What time period are we talking about that you're at the ball field?
Maybe 2023. Yeah, we were there for the flood. We were there for the fires. The tents, I got a video of this, actually. Me walking out of the gate. Inside the gate completely collapsed. I was in my bare feet, and the water was up to here. The whole ball field flooded, and in the middle was up to my knees. It was something that we definitely went through.
Let's talk about getting that information or the announcement that is made that this particular encampment is closing. What was the reality for you? How did it play out?
I left. Like I said, I left before it got shut down. I just poofed and left. So, the pallet shelters. Everybody was promised a pallet shelter. Only 3 people got a pallet shelter.
How many people are we talking about that were promised such a...
We were all promised.
Well, what's the number? Like, how many people towards the end were there at the ballpark?
Like 20 and up.
Okay, 20 and up.
20 and up. Now, like, the highest amount that I think was in there was in the 50 range. Like, we were pretty up there.
Again, that's
maybe
why you were
early
making the
60s.
news.
Yeah, maybe early 60s. We were climbing.
Can I ask why the draw? Like, why were so many people? What was there? Aside from a sense of community, what would prompt someone who's looking for a place to tent? What was drawing them to a ballpark? Because I would think 60 people that you don't know doesn't seem like the best decision.
Well, I mean, like, you have other places that may have seemed unsafe, other encampments. Maybe people were arguing or fighting with other people from, again, other encampments. We did receive support, whether it was like through getting pallets, clothing, whatever, but I think at the very beginning or right before that is when we started to climb. So I'm not exactly sure why everybody just kind of started gravitating towards the ball field at the beginning, but eventually it was like the support is why I think everybody was coming in there. You know, you're going out in the outdoors, you're struggling, you have storms that come, takes your tent, takes your belongings. Who can afford to get that back under $400 on assistance?
No one.
Right? So, like, the community of Sackville actually helped quite a bit. And I'm kind of grateful for that. Although I can say that as much as we received a lot of help from the community in Sackville, we received a lot of flack as well. Some of it was really uncalled for. And I also have to say, not just the adults, it was the children. So, you know, kids were becoming a little bit despicable, just coming over, shitting in the porta potty, right in the urinal or on the floor, making a mess, or filling condoms full of urine and throwing it at us.
Are you serious?
Were you there? Yeah.
Fireworks.
Yeah, fireworks. Yeah, we went through some stuff. People just coming in, going through the tents. We didn't tolerate like some stuff, so there was minimal needle use. Not many people used syringes in there, and there wasn't too many couples that were in there that were like abusing each other, which was kind of nice. Like, we had the odd, but it wasn't over the amount that we would have had way too much drama. There was some, you know, like, you can't really stop anybody from coming into an encampment. You don't know who's coming in. You don't know their history. I know there was something released on Predator, like, person in the encampment. We had no idea of that behavior until the end. So, like, we had no knowledge of it. Any drug use type of stuff. You can't stop somebody from doing it. But I know that whatever was going on, at least it was more safer in that environment rather than everybody scavenging everywhere else. And anything to do with anybody selling anything in there. Because I know that there was a couple articles on one or two individuals, and they were targeted saying basically in the articles it said that they were targeting unhoused individuals when it came to drug use. I'd like to make it clear that that person that was in the news was just as homeless as we were, and they were just as ill as anybody could be, which is unfair that they went through that. Absolutely unfair. And in the end, had thought that we all had something to do with whatever they went through, and we didn't. We loved them just like anybody else in our encampment.
How are you continuing to be a positive influence? Because I've met lots of people who have experienced being unhoused, and they're the first people to line up to give back.
I was giving back a lot, and then I realized that I needed to step back and take care of myself. Some. it was something that I really needed to do. I do have people that call me. You know, if they need support, call me, go ahead. I'll sit there and talk you out of a crisis if you want. But I need to be mindful that my mental health comes first. I can recall of going through a couple of crisis situations where people got injured that had interfered with a lot of our mental health. Therefore, some of us kind of stick closer together because of anybody who could have got injured. I do know a couple of people in the tiny home area. So, like, over Christmas, I did give back a little bit. I put effort into giving somebody that lives in a tiny home community a little bit of Christmas. I got them a walker and some other gifts. They were struggling with their health. They almost passed away a few times. They were in the hospital and ICU for a few months. And I thought that they deserved something to look forward to. And that was the walker. It was the first year that I had a Christmas in a space that was in my space, basically. First Christmas tree since 2021 in my space. And I had my kids, right? So putting myself first. I do know some people from the encampment are still unhoused. Some are getting somewhere, some are unhoused, some are working. Some are cleaned up. Some are still struggling with drug use. And no matter what they're going through, like I said, can call me at any time and just talk. You know, some people just got a job, but ended up back in a shelter, calling me at 6 o'clock in the morning in a crisis situation, and I'm going to answer the phone. Like, I'm that person that's going to answer the phone. If I don't right away, I'm going to call you back. You know? I feel like when you live in the situation, but you have everything you need and you're watching everybody struggle, you want to do something. And that was one of the things that was an eye-opener when I went outside. That's something that made me thrive living outside. I was very fortunate when I went out there. Like, I did have everything I needed. And I didn't get rid of anything unless it was somebody else. You know, I was pretty happy about that.
We mentioned a few moments ago, I just want you to talk about family that brings joy to you. I know, can you just kind of quickly talk about the process that you're going through, that you continue to go through to try and get back so that your kids are living under the same roof as you?
Housing is a delay. I was saying something about catch-22s for parents. When a parent struggles and they have no choice but to put their children somewhere so that they can ensure the safety of their child while they're getting back on their feet, it's really hard for a parent to get back on their feet in a housing situation, more or less than anything else. I mean, it's like I said, in order to get housing, like through housing, any more than a bachelor, one bedroom, you need your children. But in order to get your children, you need housing. And there's your catch-22. Now, I did find a little bit of a leverage somewheres, and that was through the supplement. So, rental supplement. If you can get approved for rental supplement, there's a possibility that you can get more than a one bedroom if you do see your children and if you do put them on the lease.
Even that process is hard.
That process is ridiculously hard.
It's a weeks-long, month-long process because we're going through it ourselves. And just to hear back from the agency giving you a case number can be 6 to 8 weeks. I walked my stuff down to the office in November. The 19th of November, here we are, February, still haven't heard back from them because they're dealing with hundreds and hundreds of cases,
Whoa.
Which is why this housing crisis that we're dealing with is on the wrong end of it. We're on the backside of it, where if we could get people a livable wage, bring down the cost of living, you wouldn't have so many people outside because people are deciding where their money's going to go. And we just don't have enough to divvy out to people who are just greedy enough to take every dime that you have.
That's right. And I found that in order to really get into like anything to do with the housing supplement, working with housing support workers was one thing, but getting letters from professionals to support this was the biggest thing that you had to do. So it was not. It was kind of like in between. It wasn't hard, but it wasn't easy, right? Although I could see that other cases could be harder than what I figured out. The hardest part about it is actually finding a place, in general, that isn't, going to accept you for being unhoused. I feel like there's a lot of judgment, even for somebody who's cleaned up.
Just think of the irony of that statement. You're having a hard time getting into a place because you've been unhoused. Like, I don't understand the mentality why people think just because someone has been unfortunate enough to be outside that they're now the scourge of the earth. I just don't understand if we can turn our back on people like that.
I would like to throw out the discouragement I felt when I went to look at a place, and because I have asthmatic and bronchial issues, was told by the landlord because I was coughing, if he would have known I was coughing, I wouldn't be viewing that place. Now, if somebody's unhoused or about to become unhoused and they're ill, how do you expect them to be housed and take care of themselves if people are not willing to show off an apartment? I mean, you could put on a mask so you can stay your distance. I wasn't contagious, I just had a cough. Even calling around and you're coughing, it's hard.
Like we mentioned, there's so many barriers. Not only that, what you're dealing with, but what policy puts in front of you, and just what other humans put in front of you.
Yeah. I'm not in my own place. I am in a hotel shelter diversion program, but I thrived. I didn't want to get kicked out of there, so I started doing better. I do feel that they are lacking, though. I feel like they are lacking big time. I feel like sometimes my needs are met, and most of the time they aren't. I feel right now the only reason why my needs are met in a lot of ways is from a housing support worker, not specifically through the shelter diversion. I do know that I had went through one girl. She wasn't there for very long. She was a very nice girl. But I am the type of person that, again, needs consistency. So I'm not about to open up to anybody. So as much as she was nice and everything, she was also new, meaning she was lacking of experience, which was going to be hard for me to work with. And she didn't stay either, so she has already left, meaning that I had to be shifted to another worker. Unfortunately, there was no worker to be shifted to, so now I'm just all over the place. And then, they want me out of there and into a place, and I'm looking, but I feel like they're going to want me out of there sooner than I find a place, but I'm really looking right now. So here's hoping that something happens by March 1st, April 1st. Is my hope. But I have to say, even moving into your own space, I wish there was more advocates, more people that would help people to transition from outdoors to indoors. The barriers can become ridiculous, I guess. I can recall not feeling that I deserved to sleep in a bed right away.
I've heard that.
Yeah, I slept on the floor right away. It was not. It didn't feel real to be able to have a sink, whether it was in the bathroom or not, to do dishes in, a microwave to cook your food in.
A bit overwhelming.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about safety for a moment.
It feels like you have to have a weapon at all times.
What I was going to ask you, and you can just give me a yes or no, because I've known people who have lost their lives in the 4 years I've been here, being in a tent, whether dying to exposures or being beaten to death. So I'm just wondering, and I can tell by
my expression changed for a second. That's a little bit hard for a second.
I know it's a vicious, lawless environment, and I never thought in my 53 years that I would come to hear stories from people and then find out a few months later that they're not here anymore. So it's devastating to me, and I can only imagine for you who have lived it much more. So I think the point of this documentary is just to show people real stories. Like, people matter. Everyone matters, whether you're inside or outside.
It's just dangerous. I do know there's some people that are no longer here anymore, and no matter what their history is, sometimes people just don't deserve to go through. Not even sometimes. A lot of the time, people don't deserve to go through what they do, especially being outside and safety measures. I know people that have been beaten or stabbed, and that have lost their life. And I feel that is not okay. Not okay. It's just people that want to be safe. You're put in an unsafe situation, and then they allow it. They no longer want the help because they don't want to be in that situation anymore. They, at that point, want to be gone. When other people have to witness somebody going through that stuff in a tent or even other places, the trauma, like, to see somebody that is almost dead ever for anybody, while they're outside or inside, shouldn't be a thing. Yeah, sometimes things are touchy. That's a bit of a touchy one. Clearly, there's some sort of trauma history there. Maybe I've seen things that I shouldn't have. And I yeah, that's touchy. That's a touchy one.
Homelessness is a top issue in the upcoming Halifax municipal election. Now there's an effort to make sure the unhoused get to exercise their right to vote. One of Halifax's 16 mayoral candidates, Andrew Goodsell, is homeless and living in a designated tent encampment. The housing crisis is what drove him to run for mayor in the first place.
I mean, this guy's definitely found housing by now. Right?
How many days last year did you actually spend inside for the night?
Well, we'll put it at approximately a dozen, maybe 12, give or take. Probably more than a baker's dozen, not much more than an actual dozen. So yeah, my name's Andrew Goodsell. I consider myself a freelancer and an advocate for the homeless. I've currently been out on the streets now for 2 years. This time round, I've got lots of experience out on the streets, but for the last 2-year stretch, me and my dog Dusty has been out on the streets. My best advice for anyone is to have very strong willpower, and as much as I hate to say it, don't rely on these organizations, because for 2 years I've been told the same thing by these organizations, and it's caused me more stress and anxiety and depression than any kind of sense of relief or help.
But we've stayed connected since the spring of 2024. I have all kinds of things to talk about. It's been like 3.5 months since I've seen you. I was actually asking other people, like, where did he go? And I actually met one of your friends at Scotia Square a few weeks ago. And within 36 hours or less, I knew where you were. You have moved a tremendous amount of times in the last 2 years. 5 times, different encampments.
Yeah, not by choice.
Not by choice. The HRM closing encampments. I want to know what your current situation is right now in this latter part of February 2026. Where are you and what are the conditions like? Because it's a frigid day here today.
So I'm now kicking at the Green Road encampment. I've been there since probably the day before the official shutting down of the Flynn Park encampment. And the reason that I moved when I did and how I did was because I was afraid once again that they were just going to throw all my stuff in the back of a dump truck and leave me hanging. So yeah, I'm now over at the Green Road encampment. It's not a great situation. Again, there was no preparation. No one did anything to try to set up any little sites or anything. So everyone kind of just jams in wherever they want to jam in. And I went from being completely clear with no one around me to now literally being encircled by a bunch of tents and people that I don't really know. So yeah, that's currently where I'm at.
Where you are now, this is the 5th time you have moved. Can you give us a time frame to the circumstances that initially put you out, and then just kind of give us a breakdown of where you have been over the last couple of years and the circumstances that have led to you moving from point A to point B?
Yeah, so originally I was out on the streets and finally got picked up by Shelter Nova Scotia, who offered me a living situation, which I thought was going to be a really good situation. It was a beautiful little 1-bedroom apartment for an actual affordable price. But as soon as I got in there, I realized how much that they wanted to micromanage me and how much of my income that they wanted to take. And they were looking for 60 to 80% of everything I had coming in. I couldn't have my daughter come over without them trying to follow me up the stairs, like so many little situations. And then I find out that it was primarily a building that was meant for people that had real serious issues. So like, people with serious alcohol addictions that the organization was paying for their alcohol and stuff, keeping them in their places, and people with really hard drug addictions. So like, I could get past the situation of the building with the people, which was fine enough, but I couldn't get past the micromanagement. And I just found myself very depressed with the idea that I couldn't do anything without literally an entire team of people watching everything I did and telling me what to do and how to do it. So I found myself depressed again, realizing that I wasn't in a dignified living situation, nothing like the public housing that I wanted, and that I was just supporting another nonprofit organization that was literally trying to nickel and dime every penny they could from me, right down to a subsidy that they admitted that they didn't need, but they tried to push me on filling out for them anyway. Anyway, when I first got in there, I pushed that the two things that I really wanted to do was grow my own cannabis plant and to get a dog, and they said that they weren't going to allow me to do either, even though I tried to argue the cannabis front with the fact that the laws had all been changed since their last updated lease agreement. And they just wouldn't do it. So eventually a buddy of mine actually said that I could come and get Dusty if I wanted him, and if I didn't, he was taking him to the SPCA. And that was one of the serious conditions that I had for getting a dog, was it had to be a rescue, and I wasn't willing to pay a penny initially for the dog. So when I was offered the dog, and I'd literally told the organization 2 years ago that was like one of my aspirations in life, that's what I did. I went and I got the dog. When I realized I was keeping the dog, I gave them the heads up that I was keeping the dog and was hoping that they'd transition me into a place that was dog friendly. But instead they gave me my little less than 3 months notice and said that if I didn't rehouse the dog, I could rehouse myself. And me and Dusty has been out ever since. February, the end of this month, will be our 2-year anniversary of being out on the streets together.
Let's just continue the conversation about Dusty. I have said multiple times the importance of companions, whether it's a cat, whether it's a snake, lizard, whatever someone needs to get them through the day. I have seen you in some incredibly destructive places mentally. How important is it, not just for Dusty to be by your side, but for companionship for those that find themselves outside?
I'd say it's absolutely essential. I've been saying to all the workers that the two biggest things that we need is dignified living situations is the number one, but the number two is community. And Dusty is my community. He is amazing. He not only lights up my life. I can't wake up and not put a smile on my face when I see this dog, but I can't walk down the street without him lighting up 10 other strangers I've never even met before. Dusty is, he is a spirit animal. He is magical, and he is my community, and he brings a lot of community to me. He's probably got way more friends than I've got, actually, in this city. Everyone says hi to Dusty, and half of those people do not say a word to me. So Dusty's just straight out magic. He's beautiful in the essence of any kind of being, and the fact that they keep on using him as an excuse for me not to have a dignified living situation just says to me that there's no such thing as a dignified living situation, because if me and Dusty can't have a place, then who can? And if that is the reality, then what are the conditions towards what these other people are saying is a dignified situation when it's clearly not dignified? How can a person like myself be out for 2 years and not get a dignified living situation if such a thing actually exists? And I'm the one person that's about saving the taxpayer money, not making privatized industries a bunch of money, right? So, you know, I'm here for the people, and I always say that the reason that I'm still in this situation is just because I'm a man of principle.
Let's expand on that a little bit more. You ran for mayor here in the Halifax Regional Municipality. What was your message to the people that were voting, and what were some of the conversations you were having?
So my biggest message, my biggest push was to bring public housing back. A lot of people have forgot what public housing is, what it was designed for, and its entire purpose, really. And that breaks my heart, considering how public housing is the answer to homelessness. We, the people, need to be able to provide for the people. It also allows us to create a standard of living pricing. So if we have enough public housing around and we say this is the price for this type of place, well, that becomes a standard, and that helps out everybody in the long run, except for the privatized individuals that keep on hiking it up to make more and more profit, which I'm all about someone making a little bit of profit, but it's at the point now that greed it's killing everyone around me. It's not just my stress factors, but you know, I know couples that are both working jobs and are just getting through, let alone a single individual who pays slightly less rent than a 2 or 3 bedroom. You can't even fathom, I can't fathom how most people even do it anymore. Like a single individual, when I look at the numbers, when I look at the expectations, that's the kind of stuff that brings extreme depression and anxiety to me, because there's no such thing again as me getting myself out of this situation and feeling good about it. You know, I was pushing all kinds of things. I was pushing the fact that we need to stop giving raises to our politicians. The councillors are making over $100,000 a year. The mayor's making over $200,000 a year. And yet every single one of them, when I'm listening to the Todd Vino show, is saying that they feel like they deserve this raise. And it's like, are you kidding me? How about we put a freeze on your pay so that you can even maybe start to fathom what it's like for someone that's making $35,000 a year or slightly more, which I believe is what the minimum wage worker is making. They can't even fathom what it's like. And yet you're supposed to be the people that are helping the general public. Well, I can tell you now, the general public works in minimum wage jobs. So if you're not pushing to make sure that they are safe and comfortable, then you're not doing your job. And that's what I was pushing for. I was pushing for public housing. I was pushing for anyone more in the high end of the sunshine class to be like, no, we can take pay freezes. We don't need raises. These are tax dollars that are paying these people, and they are so far above the norm now that they're no longer even able to fathom how to help the common individual. And then I guess just on top of that, it was for the public good. Like I kept quoting Joseph Howe, what is for the public good? And if it's not for the majority and you're looking to help out a minority, then there's a massive problem.
Yeah, I'm glad that you ran. I'm glad that I voted. And it's shocking to me to be sitting next to someone who ran for mayor in the HRM and is still outside in a tent. You campaigned on public housing, but what the reality is we have a government that is okay with putting money into shelters, designated encampments, tiny homes, pallet shelters. So can you explain to me what your overall thoughts of shelters, and just the tiny homes. And to me, the tiny homes are great. It's much better than a pallet shelter. It's much better than being in a tent. But I agree with you that public housing, we should note, is much different than affordable housing. So just your thoughts on your experiences with the various entities that you're involved with.
Yeah, so, well, the shelter organizations, I'll never forget when I very first went to any shelter organization, but I'll use the Turning Point as an example here, because that's the shelter for men who are in crisis to go to. I'll never forget going there, being told that, yeah, you know what, there's a good chance for an individual like yourself, Andrew, you'll be here for a couple weeks. And this is while I'm working full time, right? I'm able to show the numbers, what I'm making, what I'm looking for, all of this. And then I'm not actually getting that help. I was there for 11 months with the housing representative there telling me that I will never get public housing because I am a man between the ages of 26 and 64, which is a massive gap, as you can imagine. So it was just heartbreaking to me. It's like I'm showing you guys the facts and you guys are telling me that you're going to help me and that there's a potential I can get out of this kind of situation real fast. But it was the exact opposite. I was dragged through for 11 months. When I finally did manage to get out of the place, it was to a room in a rooming place that wanted a ridiculous amount of money for rent. And I told them, I'm like, listen, if anything happens and I'm stuck in this situation, I'm only going to find myself back in this situation. This is the whole reason I need public housing. I need a sense of safety and security, right? And I just never got it. So, you know, I find myself in those rooming houses conditions, and it's like I'm cleaning up after everyone else on any given day, and it finally gets to the point that I'm so depressed. I'm like, that someone should be paying me to live here and to clean up after all these people. If I got to go use this washroom and I'm cleaning feces off the toilet every time I do, there's an issue, and no one should be paying for that kind of situation. So. And then, next thing you know, COVID actually hit, and it did put me back out. And, you know, here I am working during COVID and asking for help, and there is nothing, right? So then we get through COVID, and I keep pointing out to everyone, because everyone wants to blame COVID for this issue, but COVID had nothing to do with it. We were having these issues way before. If you look at the numbers and how single individuals were treated of any age group, if you're a single individual, it's almost like you're not granted permission to be in Canada unless you've got a high-end job, because if you don't, you're working low wage, you can't afford to live, and you find yourself in my kind of situation where next thing you know, you're either living out of a car or out of a tent or somewhere on the street, and then you're subjected to everything that happens out on the street. Like I said, when I first pitched up even in this little encampment, I was the only tent around me. Now within probably 10 or 20 feet of me, there's 5 other tents, and they're circling me, right? So, and these are the type of people that you cannot rationalize with. So, you know, I don't have power in my tent, not because I can't get it, but because since I've been there, I've already heard 2 uproars where there was fights because of the power situation, and another one where a guy literally threatened someone else's life over the power. I'm not getting myself in that situation, right? So
I want you to paint a picture of what it's like at the Green Road encampment, and specifically, like, unfortunately, I would consider you, you're a veteran of being outside. You've been outside the entire time that I've known you, the elements of every season. When you had to move from Lower Flynn Park in late October, can you explain how you had to reset?
Yeah, so the difference is, it's crazy. It's night and day. So first of all, the one good thing about Flynn Park was because I was there as long as I was, and it was through the better seasons here in Canada, I was actually able to set up a pretty good situation. I had a large overhang. I was in a small wooded area, lots of coverage, a large tent for me and Dusty with a smaller tent in it. When they actually did the closing, once again, this is the second time they've done it in winter. Like, we had already had snow on the ground when we were kicked out of these spots. So I went from having all of this extra protection, a nice setup. I could have made myself a coffee every morning under an underhang. It was great. To now, I'm in a big open field. There's no protection from any of the elements. I'd have nothing to hang anything on. I don't even have anywhere around me that I can put a clothesline clothesline up so I can hang my blankets up on a nice day like today. So like the difference is night and day. I went from being at least somewhat comfortable to not comfortable at all. I'm jamming myself into a super tiny tent with my dog every night, and you know, he don't seem to mind, but at the end of the day I do. I wake up cold every time the blankets shift off my body and exposes it to the elements, and next thing you know, I'm waking up readjusting all my blankets because there's so much condensation from me and the dog and our body heat in the tent. The whole interior of the tent fills up with condensation and then gets all the blankets and stuff wet, right? So and then of course that stuff freezes, and that's just the elements. That's just like, if it's raining, I've got that much more to deal with. I've got me and a wet dog going into that tiny little, you know, setup. If there's freezing rain, I gotta hope that I can get out of my tent. The one day I couldn't even get out of my tent because it had frozen the zipper right to the tent, right? So it took me forever to be able to get out of that tent. And it's just scary as I get more and more people with, you know, mental health issues and stuff pitching up around me, because if something happens, next thing you know, they target my tent, not even thinking that it's me or Dusty. And I just pray that every day I show up, it's even there and in decent shape, and no one's decided to steal my blankets.
In the 2.5 years, nearly 3 years that I've been, doing live streams and covering this, I think at one time in total there were 8 encampments, designated encampments. I can say with some certainty that there has been a death or a shooting or a stabbing or some type of violent incident at every single encampment. Just earlier this month, a lady in her 40s was found deceased at the Barrington Street encampment, where you were, in the same vicinity. We're down to 2 designated encampments. I don't know, this fall, the HRM put out a statement saying that they are looking to close all the remaining encampments within the next, we'll say sometime in 2027. It won't be this year, but sometime next year. I don't know where people are going. I think in the wintertime you have people who, if they're lucky enough, might be couch surfing. But we know that the numbers have doubled. I believe that when it gets nicer in the summertime, we'll see more people out. Point is, what goes through your mind when you are in one of the 2 designated encampments, hearing that it's going to be closed sometime next year, and there's really no game plan for where people are going to go? Just your thoughts on that. Always under the threat of having to move again.
Well, it's at the point now that everything that I hear is just like, it's the same old, right? You pointed out, this has been 2 years that when I think of it, I should be one of the easiest people to house, but yet this over 2 years and I'm not housed, and to me that alone is mind-boggling to me. So if you can't help me with what few conditions that I've got going, then I don't understand how anyone's actually helping anyone. I've officially come to the terms, Matthew, that there is no real help that's going to be provided for me. I've been told by at least 2 of the higher end people working with the homeless now that they don't even care that people are out there sleeping on the streets anymore. I have a feeling that it's going to get to what they did before back in the day, where next thing you know, cops are just waking people up and pushing them around all night. They just try to fall asleep on a bench, and you're going to charge them for being homeless on a bench, right? So I'm just waiting for the inevitable to happen, and for me, it's the idea that next thing you know, I'm walking every day to wherever I'm walking, and I'm passing out to wherever I'm passing out. And I just want to point out to everyone that the city's only making things worse for everyone. You're not only not providing any real solutions, but you're actually just making things devastatingly worse for everyone. After they do these next 2, I'm back to there is technically nowhere that I can go except for these shelter spaces. And we all know that shelter spaces are bad. If you want to learn how to shoot up properly or drink Listerine, go to a shelter. And I don't want to learn how to drink Listerine properly or how to shoot up. I've got no faith in our system anymore. I've talked to the director of homelessness. I've talked to all these organizations. I got a piece of paper, 28 different organizations' names on them. I've dealt with all of these people, and as far as I can tell, they're all the exact same. If they can make money off of a person, then they will stick them in an undignified situation and make money off of them. And if they can't, well, here we are today.
We all know how important eating is. Without refrigeration, just without that. Give us a typical day. Like, what's your eating habit like? Because, to be honest, I have seen you rail thin. Like, concerning, right? But not unexpected considering you're outside. What are your eating habits like? What's going on there?
Well, the only benefit to winter is that it actually does preserve some food that I can acquire by leaving it in the frigid conditions that is my tent. The reality is that I've got to use the resources that are around, and it only gets harder and harder again with these guys pushing me around everywhere. Here in the Dartmouth side, there's very little for the people, actually. Margaret's house is a godsend for sure. It's one of the only places I know in the entire downtown area of Dartmouth that you can get anything. They're open up from Monday to Friday from 11:30 to 12:30. You really do have to be there during that time. So, like, time is always a struggle. Like, you have very specific times you need to be places if you want to eat, right? So I'm so thankful for Margaret's house, because without them, I'd be forget rail thin. I'd be string thin, like spider silks thin. Canned goods right now are actually dangerous for me because they freeze and then rust. So do I eat great? No, I don't eat great by any means, but I feel like I get through well enough by using the resources that are around. I feel so sorry for the world that we're in today. We're here in Canada, one of the richest, if not the richest country in the world, in my opinion. We've got ridiculous amounts of fresh water, resources, you name it. We've got the capabilities, and yet our people are suffering daily. And if people don't think I'm suffering, they're not paying attention.
It's not a solution, it's a band-aid. I've also found, too, in my research, it's incredibly hard to find a definitive, concise set of data on people who have died while homeless in Nova Scotia. I challenge anyone to actually find me that number. It would be greatly appreciated, because it's really hard.
Why do you think that is?
Optimistically, I'd like to think that maybe it's just something that they didn't have to think that they had to keep track of before.